Have you ever thought to yourself, I could be great at blank if I could just get started? In this episode, we get to hear from Whitney Elkins-Hutten, who thought to herself, I bet I could use real estate to build my wealth. Now, several years later, she's built up a very impressive portfolio and is teaching others how to do the same. Let's jump in so that you can learn from her extensive knowledge.
Are you a working professional but struggling to balance the workload of your career, family, obligations, and preparing for your financial future? If so, this podcast is for you. You've spent years learning your craft, and now it's time to focus on your financial future. This podcast will teach you what you need to retire wealthy and happy. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast.
In this show, we offer financial tips and tricks to help you build up your passive income and methods that you can use to protect your wealth so that you can plan a better future for yourself and your family. We're grateful to have this podcast sponsored by Monument Real Estate Capital. Monument Real Estate Capital, helping you retire at least 10 years early through passive real estate investments. On today's episode, we're excited to have Whitney Elkins-Hutten with us. She is the Director of Investor Education at PassiveInvesting.com. Whitney lives in Colorado and is the owner of Ash Wealth. She loves trail running, traveling, photography, playing board games, spending time outdoors, and with her family. In today's episode, we're going to cover mindset and financial fundamentals for creating and keeping wealth, and also consequences of poor financial planning. Whitney, thanks for being on the show with us today.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Now, would you be willing to just give us like a quick overview of what your current and past portfolio looks like so that our audience can kind of have a better understanding of why we wanted you on our show today?
I will do my best to make it short. I actually started off in real estate investing in 2002. And at that point in time, I wasn't in real estate at all. I bought a house with a significant other, living the traditional American narrative that, eventually we get married, have kids, have the house, but a month later, the relationship fell apart and I had the house. But I also had all the bills that went along with that. And so I fell into live-in flipping and house hacking. That's what it's known as now. But really what I did, I panicked, stuffed the property full of roommates and to pay the bills, and then completed the flip on the property. And then 11 months later, sold it. And when I did that, I realized real estate's pretty good. I like this. How many more of these type of deals can I do? Now, over the next few years, I scaled up, through live-in flipping and house hacking, and then eventually got into buy and hold real estate when I realized what we actually were after was cash flow, not equity. Equity is good, but it doesn't get you out of your day job. Right. So if you're living that 9 to 2 cubicle life, you can have all the amount of money shoved away like in your stocks, bonds, and IRAs. But if you can't get it to cash flow and be able to tap into that now, it's very hard to retire. And then so did that. And then we hit a ceiling of achievement. We wanted to be able to scale faster and in bigger deals. And that led us into multifamily institutional grade assets. And I got into a partnership that way. And then I was doing several deals passively as well. And then where I'm at today is I'm the Director of Investor Education here at PassiveInvesting.com. And our corporate portfolio is $1.4 billion under asset. And so we have over 3,300 multifamily, 6,600 self-storage. And then express car washes as well. But where I'm at personally, my husband and I have scaled 6,500 residential units in partnership and then 2,200 self-storage units and have flipped over 5 million real estate. And we have other business ventures as well.
Well, in case our audience isn't aware, that is a very large, impressive portfolio that covers a ton of knowledge. And that's why we wanted to have Whitney on the show today. So Whitney, thank you for sharing that. We're all excited to learn from you today.
Excellent. Roger, I tried to keep that short.
That was beautiful. It's beautiful. Roger, do you want to jump into topic one or do you want me to do that?
Sure. What are the mindset and financial fundamentals that helped you in creating and keeping that wealth?
Ooh, I had to learn everything, seemingly trial by fire. I wish I could have just waved magic wand and read a book or read a blog post and had the mindset I do today 20 years ago. But it's an evolution. But what I love about content, about coaching, mentoring, is that, you can, a lot of people say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I actually argue that, like, if those 2 points are on a piece of paper and you draw this straight line, if you fold the paper in half, those 2 points are now together. So you can collapse time. So when you ask me, where was my mindset? If I could wave a magic wand for everybody, is, having a resiliency mindset. If you could instantly snap into a growth mindset and a resiliency mindset, stop saying I can't and start saying how can I, really tap into, the ability to do hard work and hear no often. Like, that is what will get you to your goals. But that's hard. You have to develop that. Your mindset, it's software that lays on some old hardware, in the brain. And so we have to constantly update that software. Even I have to constantly update my software regularly too. Again, some people get it quicker than others, but you can really boil it down to a couple concepts.
I love your positive attitude there, Whitney. Obviously, you probably had a lot of challenges and trials over the last 15, 20 years as you've learned, but that's what's your resiliency has made you who you are today, right?
Well, the first time and even today, if I encounter an obstacle, if it's new for me, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, like, what happened here? Like, what's going on? But it's taking that breath in between the stimulus and the response. That's where your whole world lies. And so if I can just take that breath and realize I have some sort of tangible skill, there's some experience in my background that I can pull from. Or if I don't have it, who can I reach out to and tap into and pull them into my world so they can help me solve their problem? But, for me, I had to learn that response. And also, I think, growing up, I think it's changing in today's educational world. But like, when I grew up, you worked in a silo. Like, you didn't ask other people for help. There was, you didn't, have a problem like come across your desk and it was okay to like call your coworker and collaborate with them. No, you were, taking them away, their focus away from what their job was. I think that world's changing. So when I say resiliency, it's not just like, can you battle through it, but how resourceful can you be?
Great points, Whitney. Great points. Roger, do you want to keep going with those bullet points?
Well, I do have a question to follow up on that. Like, what right now and back then in the early years were the things that helped you with that positive mindset? Who? What?
Who?
Because I'm sitting here thinking, Tony Robbins has helped me a lot, and Unleash the Power Within was a great changer for a lot of people. And so, what influences did you get? 20 years ago, we couldn't go to Bigger Pockets or podcasts and get somebody else's opinion that was, positive.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I 100% agree. I think it's really who I've chosen to surround myself with now. Because, back then, I didn't have anybody in my world that was trying to do what I was doing. Even with my friends, when I was, doing those early, live-in flips, none of them understood investing. They didn't understand what I was trying to build. They were like, okay, you got yet another house. What was wrong with the last house that we helped you fix out? Why do you have another one? They were like, we love sushi and beer, but like, come on, So, I think it was really, and I would agree, like Tony Robbins is a huge influence on my life. Tom Bilyeu has been a huge influence on my life. Jay Papasan, Gary Keller. I'm in the GoBundance tribe, the women's GoBundance. And so, I have like, hundreds of women that, have similar mindsets to me, but all going in different directions and scaling their business in real estate. So it really gets down to who you're surrounding yourself with. I just knew that, if I guess what I'm trying to say is I couldn't find that in my current ecosystem. I wasn't going to find it with my family. I wasn't going to necessarily find it with my friends. They might be my cheerleader and pat me on the back, but, really picking up that mindset and absorbing, the very fabric of it. I mean, it's something that I can't even put a name to. It's like, you actually have to be in in a group of people that are at your level or where you want to go, and just put yourself in that space. But that's hard. A lot of people, again, like I said, want to work in a vacuum. They think they can do it all themselves, or, maybe they have to pay to get themselves in that type of relationship, and they don't want to do that. They don't want to afford it. And I'll be really honest, there are a lot of, gurus out there who may or may not be worth their salt. But that can be a little discerning as well. But really learning how to elevate yourself and put yourself in community is huge.
One of the things we had talked about on a previous episode, Whitney, was if somebody was just getting started in their journey with investing, or whatever you want to call it, was what would you do with a small amount of money to invest? And what we had discussed was that one of the best things you can do with a small amount of money to invest is to actually invest in yourself. So whether that's getting into a networking group like you're talking about, or learning something, paying for some education, that's a great starting point. Would you agree that that's something to consider if you're just getting started?
Absolutely. Yeah. I would start with, things close to home, literally, investing in yourself. But if you're actually going into your first investments, like how can you make your own home where you live one of your first investments? There's a lot of reasons why you want to do that. Structure your investment that way. I think we call it house hacking now, but part of that is investing in yourself, because you can't just go out and buy a home and not have a good job, a stable income, and the credit to do that. So yes, you have to invest in yourself in order to get even to those milestones.
Great points. Great points.
When I started out, I was cleaning carpets. And so I would go to people's houses, clean carpets. A lot of times it would be a realtor that was doing the coordination. And so I talked to those people, one carpet, and this is like 1997, I believe. I was cleaning a carpet, and the guy was like, yeah, I just made 40 grand on this house, and I thought it'd be a nice gesture to clean the carpet. And I was making like 25 grand a year, covered in chemicals and dirty water and cat hair and every other thing, driving everywhere. And that's when I knew that I was going to do a, house hack, live-in flip. It was just a remodel back then, but me and my high school buddy pulled our money and bought an FHA loan house. And then we just were in the deep end for a while.
Whatever it takes to get started, right?
Well, what I love about that story, though, is in this, this kind of goes back to like the mindset piece, is you learned right there that you could unhook your value that you create in the world from how much time you spend doing that. And that is huge, because I don't know, like I didn't learn that. I think my dad actually tried to teach me that, but like anything my dad said, I was like the exact opposite. He was like, go and be a business major. I'm like, nope, doing chemistry. Like I was just like, I was the typical, I wouldn't say rebellious kid, but that was my form of rebellion against my parents. Is whatever they said, I stayed in my lane, but I did the exact opposite. But I think that's a huge concept for people to understand, that your only way that you create value in the world is not necessarily about how much time you trade, or even how much knowledge in the time that you trade. That you can actually spend very little time at all, like with selling a property, and now you got 40K to give back to the person who allowed you to generate that 40K in the first place. Right. So that's a beautiful, beautiful story. I love it.
Yeah. And you're making it sound really good, because then I got a job in construction, and then I hung out as a construction guy and a contractor. And it was a lot slower process than that sounds.
Well, and I think it's a lesson that we have to learn over and over and over again. Right. I know I wish I learned my lessons all the first time. No, I've gone through the insanity process where it's just like, wow, we're here again. What did I do to get here? Oh, I did the exact same thing that I wasn't supposed to, and that's how I got here again. So, like,
this could be a good segue to the next question here. Do you, and we can cut this out if we need to, do you still do stuff with Ash Wealth?
I do. Yeah.
So the question that I want to ask you is, what made you start Ash Wealth, and what is that now, just so that our audience knows what it is?
Yeah. So Ash Wealth, I consult with people that are getting into real estate, but actually I would say even back that up a little bit further, that are trying to understand how to create financial freedom and how they can create leverage in their world, either with their current investments or getting into real estate and other types of business development. And so really the whole premise is, driving people to that freedom in life of financial freedom, time freedom, choice freedom, so they can go out in the world and create an impact. And the reason why I created Ash Wealth was really out of a necessity for me. I was learning rapidly all these things about, my own financial education, how to, start building our real estate portfolio. We had a little daughter at home. And so I was like, I need to record this. I need to document everything. And so I started compiling everything, and I should also say at the time I was working in training and development in public health. And so what do you do as a training and developer? Is much like, an operator, you start writing up SOPs on how you do everything, right? And I did all this so I could repeat the process for my next deal, have it documented that way. Like, 15 years from now, if my daughter wants to start buying property, all that knowledge is there and she can build upon it rather than trying to recreate the wheel and learn it all again. So I'm doing this. I'm having success in my own journey. And a lot of people are starting to take notice, friends, family, outsiders that I didn't even know. And they were like, well, teach me how to do that. I'm like, oh, well, okay. Like, I have this concept where I've started putting all this material on at ashwealth.com, and Ash is my daughter's initial. So I was going to hand that over to her. So I just started building it out as a consulting practice to help solve these issues for people.
It sounds like you almost fell into it.
I did. It was something that I was going to do one day. I don't know. Had no idea when that one day was going to come. Right. And, because I always was either working really hard at my job or working hard at building my portfolio or just trying to play hard at my own life. But yeah, eventually the writing was on the wall and it was like, okay, this is it. I've been shown the sign. It's do it now or do it never. And so I decided to do it now. And it's been such a fun ride. I mean, it's had several evolutions, on just, how many people, I'm working with and what style of real estate we're working in. But right now I'm really focused on my one-on-one work with my clients.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're really trying to give value back to people, which is amazing. Do you want to give a shout out to the investor mentorship programs you have?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different things. Like I'll give a shout out to a recent book that I just was published in, The Resilient Women in Life and Business. I also have my mentorship programs at the Investor Accelerator, which you can find on Ash Wealth. And, again, those are, one-on-one designed programs, for somebody who's trying to, get into, launch down the journey of financial freedom and get into real estate investing. I also have a book that I'm in the process of publishing with Bigger Pockets over multi-generational wealth. So there's a ton of knowledge out there. I also have all my work at passiveinvesting.com. So I have the Passive Investing Needs Simple show and also the Multifamily Investor Nation podcast. So a lot of different ways that people can, find me and get information. And if they would like, for me to help them on their one-on-one on their journey, we can do that too.
You're bringing a ton of value into the world, Whitney. We appreciate that.
How many different
up, right? Like,
how many different ways are there total? You've got the podcast, the YouTube channel, the mentorship program, coaching program, books. That's really
Yeah, I'm turning
impressive.
pro. I declared myself a professional a few years ago. So, I mean, even me, I have my own coach. And so he's constantly asking me, he was like, so how did you turn pro last month? I'm like, oh, okay, here we go.
Holding your feet to the fire, right?
Oh, that's what, coaching isn't about somebody telling you what to do. It's about them helping you find the fire that you already have inside of you, but also keeping you on track to actually do what you said you were going to do. And so that can be really uncomfortable for people. So I'm sure you guys have coaches too, but it's a process you have to fully engage in to really fully appreciate it.
Growth generally is uncomfortable, right?
Yes, I'm constantly. I'll tell a little story. Maybe people here have kids. Maybe they'll appreciate this. So my daughter fell out of a tree Sunday, and broke her thumb. Oh. She is a climb. Yeah, I mean, she's going to be fine, but it's a long healing time for the type of fracture that she has. And it's, she can't go back to climbing for 12 weeks. Now she is 2 weeks away from regionals. She's been working so hard at this, made it through 6 competitions finally to get there and doesn't get to climb.
Wow.
And moreover, she doesn't get to climb this summer. So, I mean, you want to talk about for a 10-year-old, like the rug just got snapped out from underneath her. But anyways, I was like, this is the summer of exploration. Like, you've always wanted to do art. You've always wanted to do photography. You've always wanted to do all these things. And now, we have the space for you to explore, to do that. And anyways, long story short, it's allowing her to grow resilience in resiliency, but also like in plasticity, mental plasticity. Try to say that 10 times real fast.
Well, there you go with your positivity again. We need more of that from you.
You know what, you guys, I know you guys keep touching on that, but I'll tell you one thing. And Roger, you'll probably resonate this being a follower of Tony Robbins. It's not that I don't have down moments. It's just I don't let myself stay in the down moment, right? Like I feel it. I'm gonna feel rotten for about 2 minutes. I set the timer, and then after that, I'm like, okay, I've had my pity party. Staying here is not going to get me anywhere. So let's move forward. Let's figure this puppy out.
Absolutely.
Roger, do you want to pull some of this stuff from topic 2?
Yeah. What kind of systems have you used to achieve your investing goals?
So, first one is just writing down like everything that I'm doing and whether I ever have the intention of delegating it or not. And just by writing it down, I kind of send myself through several processes. Like, one, do I even need to be doing this? Is it something that I should even be doing at all? I can cut it out. If it is something that I'm doing, okay, can I automate it with some sort of software? Okay. Most recently, like I automated a lot of my bookkeeping because I didn't want to do it and I got tired of paying for it. I'm like, there's so much software out here, even some of it free right now that, I can automate this. And then can I defer it, right? Is this something that I can do later, to achieve my goals, or do I have to do it right now? And if I say, yes, I cannot defer it, then I delegate it. So that's like one kind of like master system that I run through when it comes to helping me achieve my goals. The other one is a goal setting framework. And, this is something in several areas of my life. My husband and I, we sit down annually to do a couples goal setting retreat, and we'll set common goals, but also our own personal goals. The framework we use is, what do you want? Why do you want it? And who do you have to become to get it? And when we ask those questions, who do you have to become to get it? We're actually trying to see, like, if we're leveling up, like this year we say we wanted to add on, invest, 500,000 into real estate and achieve X return with that. Like, what kind of mindset do we have to switch up our mindset? Is there something that hasn't been serving us? Like, what kind of software do we need to upgrade up here? When you talk about skills, what skills do you need to have? And more importantly, do I need to have them, or do I just need to hire somebody who has them and bring them into my world? And then do I have the network in place to achieve what I want? Do I need to go, put myself in better community with people? do I need to meet new operators? Do I need better realtors? Like, who do I need in my world and to help me achieve my goal?
I love that answer.
That's awesome.
I'm enjoying learning from you, Whitney.
I got a framework for everything.
Well, and to add to that, you're talking about what you do to set your goals every year, and that is definitely a growth mindset. And if you're not willing to put in that time like you are, then it's going to be hard to achieve any of those goals, regardless of what level they are.
Well, and I would even encourage somebody, if you have like a business partner, or maybe even just like a spouse or a spousal equivalent, it can be a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. If you've got a partner that you're regularly doing life with, have the conversation with them in the room as well, whether you guys are actually participating in each other's goals or not. And for when we started doing that as a couple, it really honestly brought us closer together, because we could diffuse a lot of the things that were tense in our life around money, around, just various things that kind of supercharge a relationship. But also some of which is like, okay, like, I want us to do this as a family, but you want to go do this. That's fine. Like, you can now negotiate like how you guys are going to craft your life. And I don't want to say just for the next year, because you have to set that vision further out. So essentially you're coming together to create like a 5 or 10-year vision, but the goals are that you're setting for the next year are in service of whatever that journey is going to be.
That's awesome. Roger, did you have something? I cut you off.
No, I'm going to say Ben wants all our episodes to be evergreen, but I'm going to break that right now. I have a fiance, and we need to do just what you said.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have those conversations where she's in the room and she does catch a little bit of our GP meeting and stuff like that. We do have, the need for those goals. So I'm going to take that one to heart and push it.
So you're helping everybody, Whitney.
Oh, awesome. Well, and that's actually a concept that I learned in the One Thing. And that's a book I read every year. Every year I read it. I pick up.
Do you know who the author is?
Gary Keller.
Gary Keller and Jay Papasan.
Okay.
But anyways, you can go to the onething.com, and it's number1thing.com. And they have a free questionnaire download that you can start. It's kind of the tip of the iceberg, but questions that you can start, kind of bouncing around internally between you and your partner, whoever that, if it's a business partner or a life partner. But those questions are illuminating. And it's some of those questions that are on those sheets. You're just like, man, I've thought this in my head, but I never had the guts to ask. And so, you kind of remove the elephant in the room, so to speak. So it's awesome.
Great suggestions, Whitney. In respect of your time, we've got a lot of stuff we want to talk about. So I want to switch topics slightly. And as a reminder to our listeners today, this episode, we're talking about mindset and financial fundamentals for creating and keeping wealth. And we're also talking about consequences of poor financial planning. So Whitney, in researching this episode and getting ready for this, I found some stuff that hopefully we can pull out here. What happens when you have poor financial planning is the question that I'm asking. And I understand you have experience with dealing with some family estate situations.
Oh, you've done your research. Yes. So I actually did a presentation at Bigger Pockets, and this is kind of like the premise of the book that I'm writing with them. Is what are those simple principles about money and about creating, keeping, and growing wealth and passing it on that just really, truly anybody can do. And we don't get into any financial estate planning, fancy tax maneuvers. In that book, you're not going to hear anything about opportunity zones or anything like that. So this is really, principles that are attainable for, anybody in the world, and most importantly, focused on the United States. But that can get you like 80 to 85% there to your financial goals. Now, the reason why I stay focused on those principles is because if you follow those principles, you don't get into the traps on poor financial planning. And So in settling some of these estates, I've had the pleasure or unfortunate pleasure of settling 5 estates. And across those 5 estates, $750,000 was eroded out of those estates. Some of it due to taxes, some of it due to just bad money decisions, some of it to internal bickering between family members because somebody forgot to leave a letter with their will of why they made the decision the way they did, right? Just simple things that could have been completely avoidable. Now, a lot of people are like, $750,000, that doesn't really, I mean, that's a lot of money, but really at the end of the day, like, is that massive? Well, compound that out at 7% for 30 years. That's $5.3 million lost to my family's fortune, like my generation. And then take that $5.3 million that was lost and my daughter's, when she takes over the estate, that's a massive wealth growth. And then, of course, that's assuming that we hung on to all of that money, which, if you follow those principles, you will be able to hang on to all, if not, majority of it, if not all of it, and grow it. And so there are some huge consequences, and really there's several areas that you can go wrong. One, not understanding how to move your wealth from linear to residual income. So essentially, if you lost your job, you're done. You have no more income earning power. That's why a lot of people really love real estate. Then you get into like your spending habits. And, I give a whole plan in there on how to avoid creating a budget, but to look at your finances a different way. That way you're eliminating those things that are essentially poking holes in your boat and where you're bringing on water, and that will drown you, drugs, alcohol. But maybe you're spending too much money on shoes and purses or mountain bikes, like my husband. Sorry, I threw him under the bus again. We've taken care of, we have a special way that we handle his mountain biking. I don't want to say addiction, but like he loves mountain biking. But those type of things. Then we get into like, how do you keep that wealth? Because there are some fundamental things that if you take your eye off of, then it doesn't matter how good you are at budgeting or how good you are at investing, it's going to poof, right? Are you paying too much in fees? Are you, do you not have your financial moat shored up and with your liability outsourced with risk with insurances? Is your estate being eroded away with taxes? Yeah, that's another reason why a lot of people love investing in real estate. One of the big ones, though, is if you're holding a retirement account, do you understand how much you're paying in fees over the course of having that retirement account? Most people have no clue of the ticking time bomb in their retirement account. And then we get into like the fundamental principles of how to grow wealth. Like how are you investing for capital preservation, cash flow, equity growth, taking advantage of tax benefits, using leverage wisely, investing in assets that have an inflation hedge component to them. And then, investing in the operator. Now, this can be investing in yourself as the operator or learning how to invest in other people's businesses. Okay. And then you get to the end. I mean, a lot of people do amazing work through their investing journey, but then they forget the fundamentals of now I got to be able to pass this on. And there's, some tactical things you need to do with either a will or a living trust, but then there's some other things that you should do to organize your estate appropriately that would probably, keep a couple $100,000 in your estate that wouldn't get eroded away. But the biggest key is, what are you doing to train that next generation, your kids or your heirs, whoever that might be, whoever you're passing the money on to? Do they understand what you went through to grow it? Do they understand how to replicate it? And then do they understand the fundamental principles and know how to keep it and grow that for themselves and then pass it on to the next generation?
So for our audience, Whitney, you just covered a lot of very important topics when it comes to wealth creation and maintaining that and passing on to the next generation. It sounds like you're writing a book right now that covers most of those topics. Is that what I understand?
It covers all of those topics. But yeah, when you say like, how do I not like lose $5.3 million in my estate? I just gave you the framework on how to do that.
Well, and I'm also trying to give you a plug for your book. So does it have a name yet?
It doesn't. We still have a working title, but like Multi-Generational Wealth Blueprint we'll see what it actually ends up getting published as.
And when are we hoping to see it?
In January.
Okay, so
2024.
A few months out, but it's going to be worth getting once it shows up, right, Whitney?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of great topics that you're covering there. So thank you for giving us the framework. And obviously, our audience can go and research each of those topics individually. And when Whitney's book comes out, it would definitely be worth checking out.
And I do some free education already on some of those topics at Ashwell. So if they want to find me there, I do a couple webinars a month to help people work through some of these concepts.
That's wonderful.
Awesome.
Whitney, I have tons of things I'd like to talk to you about, but in respect of your time, we'll probably
4 more episodes easily. Right now, off of what we know off of this one.
Before we kind of wrap things up and do our final stuff, is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't asked you about?
Oh, I mean, we can go down any rabbit hole you want. We've got some cool things going on at passiveinvesting.com with express car washes. I know there's plenty of investors out there that are trying to figure out what do I invest in next? I mean, multifamily, might not be cash flowing the way you want it to. Maybe you're not seeing the IRR returns that you want to. Over the past year and a half, we've brought on express car washes into our portfolio. And so, maybe we can do an episode on that because it's a really unique space that combines a high cash flow operating business. But the way we choose to invest in this asset is that not only are we acquiring the business, we're also acquiring the underlying real estate. We own the land, we own the brand, we also own and develop a third-party management company. And so we're really well poised on this particular asset class to either do an IPO, roll-up exit to a REIT or a private equity group, or even just a very conservative exit of individual sell of every asset.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. I have maybe a little off-topic question, but we have talked a little bit about gas stations in a previous episode. Is there a high level of depreciation on a car wash if you do a cost segregation study?
I would imagine it's pretty similar to a gas station because when you depreciate the car wash, the building is a piece of equipment. Whereas in a multifamily project, it's being depreciated over 27 and a half years, or self-storage, 39 years. Essentially majority of the building, since it is part of the business and it has to be updated regularly, we can, again, perform a cost segregation analysis, push as much as we can to the first 5 years of the project and then take 80% in year 1. And that's if you're listening in 2023. If you're listening in 2024, that bonus depreciation goes down to 60%.
Good cover.
Awesome. Well, we're down to the last thing, and it's the final 4. We ask all our guests the same questions so we can get a feel for what they do. So we ask, the first question is, what is your favorite business book?
Well, I've talked about the one thing that's probably my favorite. It's one, I have to say it's my favorite book. I can come up with other books, but yeah, that's the one that I read every year. And it applies to business and life, right? We try to tease them apart and everybody tries to have quote unquote balance, but really, you kind of have to set all those goals, together and prioritize both sides of your life together.
Awesome. I will definitely circle around and read that one again. What brings you happiness?
Ooh, I love talking about happiness because it's not just one thing that brings me happiness. And really, all the research proves there's 3 things that really help bolster somebody's happiness. It's the experiences they have in their life. It's how they grow or have progress moving forward in their life, and then how they're giving back. And so for me, I'm at my happiness whenever, or my fullest whenever, I'm traveling and having fun. I like doing new things, but I also like, having fun. We just went to Bentonville and went mountain biking again. So I'll go back there every year if I can. And then, growth wise, I'm constantly looking at ways to level up my knowledge, level up my community, and then, contributing back. I really focus on my family. I mean, as much as I do with my knowledge and how I give to the real estate space and the financial education space, I really believe one of the best places that I contribute my time and my knowledge and expertise is right here with my family at home. Because if I can impact one person's life, like if I can, have my child grow up well adjusted and put her, set her up well to go out into the world, like how many lives is she going to impact?
It's almost like you knew what our next questions were, Whitney.
That was a great answer to number 2 and number 4.
Awesome. There you go.
Let's finish off with number 3. Describe what your future retirement looks like.
I feel like I'm partly living my future retirement. I mean, and really that's by design. I mean, a few years ago, I was very an active syndicator. I was, actively involved in raising capital and deploying the capital with a couple of partners. Loved what I did, but then COVID happened and my daughter was at home and we started traveling more. And granted, we were doing more camping and not like more exotic trips or anything like that. But I was like, we had the location independence all of a sudden, and we had the time freedom, we had the choice freedom. And then I was like, wait a second, this is what I have on my vision for after my daughter graduates. I'm like, I have what I want now. Like, how can I build on that? And then I always joke around that my daughter, she's 10, she's probably going to like me, I'm mommy for a couple more years. So I'm going to lean into that.
Enjoy it while you can.
Exactly.
Our 4th question is, what do you think the best way to give back is for you? And you kind of summarize that one with the way you teach and everything else. So, yeah, I think, to give people a framework, I think when they hear giving back, that it has to be like money, right? Like, which if you're starting on your real estate journey or your financial journey, it might be a little bit tough, right? Like, why am I giving away $100 or hundreds of dollars to, other organizations when I really could use that to build my portfolio? That's fine. Then think about how can you give back in your, even time can be a challenge for people, but how can you give back in your knowledge, right? How can you reach backwards to give back to somebody who's just 2 steps behind you, right? So, that's kind of how I think of giving back: time, knowledge, and your expertise.
Awesome.
Time, talent, and treasure was one that we learned a few episodes back, actually.
Oh, I love that. Triple
talent
T.
and treasure. Cool.
Whitney, how can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, you can find me at passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com if you're interested in learning about what we're doing here at passiveinvesting.com and multifamily self-storage and express car washes. And you can also find me at ashwealth.com. That's the best place to find me if you're looking for one-on-one help on your investing journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Whitney. And for our listeners, on today's episode, we talked about mindset and financial fundamentals for creating and keeping wealth. Whitney gave us a ton of information on that. We also talked about the consequences of poor financial planning. I'm going to say that again. We also talked about the consequences of poor financial planning. And Whitney has a book coming out in January that will help people plan correctly to grow their wealth. We want to thank everybody for joining us on the Retire Wealthy and Happy podcast today. We hope to see you on the next episode.
Hope you got value from this episode. And if you have a minute, then take the time to leave an honest written review for the podcast, because we take those reviews seriously and it'll help us serve you better on the next episodes. And most importantly, be sure to start taking action so you can control your financial future today.